All right, so this next section is on equations of lines, as you can see. Also, what you should be able to see, there's a lot of information in here. I will kind of let you know as I go through all this information, the most common piece of a line concepts that they're going to be testing is going to be slope-intercept forms. If you're ever kind of dealing with a line, you're not sure which kind to draw, write in slope-intercept form. That's usually the one you're going to need. But all these other things will be tested, so I want to kind of hit them real quick, and then we can kind of get going. So again, slope-intercept form, be aware, obviously the slope is m, so just know m is slope, and then know that b is the y-intercept. But more importantly, when you're dealing with slope in a word problem, be aware, again, a slope is a rate, and a rate is represented by words like each or per. So like if you're going, you're being charged $20 per week or per month, that's a rate. It's consistent. It keeps going. You keep getting charged that same amount every single month that occurs. So again, a rate is used. You're using those words usually. With a y-intercept, they typically use the word initial. They don't really use the phrase. This is like a one-off question. So really think of the word like an initial value, a starting value, and that's going to be your y-intercept. So when you're dealing with a word problem, those are the things you should be looking for. Where did you start, and how is it changing over time? So that's going to be your slope-intercept form. You can read some other things in there as well as you go through, but those are the big things. Standard form is just going to be two rates. So you'll see AX and BY, that is a rate, and another rate. So you're going to see the word each and per used twice. So that's kind of the easiest thing to catch there. This form is useful when finding equations of lines when given x and y-intercepts. It's also the way you want to graph these types of lines. You find the x and y-intercepts. Remember, an x-intercept is always x, 0, whereas a y-intercept is 0, y. So again, that standard form is really great for either finding that, or if they're giving it to you, it's easy to set up your equation or work backwards to find the equation with those points given. Next up is translations of lines. This is a fancy way of talking about point-slope form. And point-slope form is, if you have to do it yourself, is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. I didn't write translations of lines as point-slope form because the SAT won't typically give you an equation in that form of this form right here. They won't give you this. They'll give you this, and I want you to see how these are basically the same thing. All I have to do to get point-slope form into that translation form in terms of h and k is just to take this, add it to the other side. It becomes your plus k, where the x1 becomes your h. So they really are the same thing. So just kind of treat them as they are. If you happen to see that translation form on your test, it's point-slope form is all it is. So with point-slope form, some of the, these kind of tell you translations. Minus h moves right, plus h moves left. That's something that a lot of students kind of tend to forget every now and then, that those are opposite. We'll deal with that a little bit more in Algebra 2. But the vertical shifts, those are not opposite. Minus k is down, plus k is up. So make sure we're aware of those things, and we should be okay on translations of lines or point-slope form. Number 4, topic 4, parallel perpendicular lines. Parallel lines, same slope. Perpendicular lines, opposite reciprocal slopes. So I know, hopefully you know what same means, but opposite reciprocal, just a quick example. If you had a slope that was equal to -3/4, then the perpendicular, and this is the geometric symbol for perpendicular, an upside down T like that, the perpendicular slope would be the opposite sign, which would be positive, and the reciprocal flips the fraction, so it would be 4 divided by 3. So again, if you are given a slope and they want a line that has a perpendicular slope, you need to understand what that means, because without knowing the slope, you can't solve the problem. So that's going to be parallel and perpendicular lines. Number 5 is direct and indirect variation. Direct, any phrase that says direct, they could say varies directly, is directly proportional. They will say that phrase. Or just any type of direct variation phrase is y equals k times x. If they say indirect, or they'll say inversely proportional, if you see that phrase, any of those IN words, I'll just highlight the phrase IN or the letters IN, that means y equals k divided by x. As you go through the examples, as I go through them as well, you'll notice sometimes I'll change the variables if it's a word problem. So that's really just kind of up to you, but just be aware of the equations that are used for those. Number 6, linear inequalities. Just be aware as you're working through any problems in the SAT, at least is greater than. Normally you see at least, you think less than, but if you want to make at least $20, then you don't want to make 19, you want to make more than that. So at least means greater than, at most means less than. So just some little tricks there with inequalities. Be aware of those phrases. So again, when you think about it, it makes sense, but if you're not thinking about it, you can get those backwards. So be aware of that with inequalities. So with that, let's go ahead and try some of these examples, starting with number 14. All right, so for equation of lines, there's a lot going on here. Number 14 is going to deal with variation. So this one, it says the area of a rectangle varies directly as its length. So we have area, and when we see varies directly, first off, we're using this equation. Y equals k times x. K is that constant. X and y are your variables. They'll change as we go through other points and we plug them in. But in this case, the area varies directly with the length. So the area varies directly, so we're going to go k times the length. So that's what that statement's trying to tell us. So that's our equation. Now they say the area is 50. So they're giving me the area is 50 when the length is 10 meters. So k times 10, k in this case is going to be the constant we have to solve for. So we're going to divide both sides by 10, and you can see that k ends up equaling 5. So now my equation is this. And this is kind of like its own little step, and I'll get to that in a second. But k is 5, so it's going to be 5 times L. So that's my new equation. So the first step was really just to figure out what the equation is. The second step is to define k. The third step is to solve. So in this case, they're going to have to give us either A or L, and we're going to solve it. So find the area. So we're finding A when the length is 25. So now that I have the equation, I can do that. So I can go 5 times 25. Well, 5 times 25 is going to equal 125. So that's going to be your area. You don't even have to worry about the units. They'll take care of that for you. Or if it's a grid in, you don't have to worry about it anyway. So your answer for number 14 is going to be 125. All right, with number 15, we have another variation question. This one says, in a certain manufacturing process, the cost of producing a single item varies inversely now as the square of the number of items produced. So first off, an inverse variation equation, again, is going to look like this, y equals k over x. What we're going to do, we'll change the variables on this one since it is an application problem. So we have, first off, the cost of producing something. So I'm going to say like the cost, so C equals. So the cost producing an item varies inversely as the square. Now they're saying the square of, not just, so we're not just going to have x, but it's the square of the number of items produced. So it's going to be k divided by, and we're going to call this n squared because it varies inversely with the square of the number. So that is your actual equation that we're going to be using to solve this. So that's step one, is just to get that equation. Now we're going to plug some numbers in. If 100 items are produced, each costs $2. So we have 100 items, the cost is $2. So cost is 2, and that's going to be k divided by 100 squared. So in this case, we're just going to solve this for k. You can think of this like cross product. So we'd go 2 times 100 squared equals k times 1. So k, in this case, again, is just going to be 20,000, and that's your constant. So once you get that constant, you get your equation, which is now c equals 20,000 divided by n squared. So that's the equation. And now that we have that equation, we can go ahead and solve our problem. So they want us to say find the cost, so find C per item if 400 items are produced. So the number of items is going to be 400. So I'm going to say C is equal to 20,000 divided by 400 squared. So we're going to divide that and see what we get. So 20,000 divided by 400 squared. Plug that in parentheses when you do it so it does the square first. And that's going to be 0.125. So in terms of the answer, if you wrote it out as just a decimal, it would be $0.125. So you can say it's $0.125, or you can say it's 12.5 cents. If you had to round to the nearest cent, you would say 13 cents. But regardless of how you want it, how you'd be asked to enter it, that's going to be your answer for number 15. Number 16 says in the xy plane, line L passes through the point 0, -1. So I see a line and I see a y-intercept. So right off the bat, I'm thinking y equals mx plus b, some variation of it. And I know that I have the point B is 0, -1. So that's just my starting point for number 16. They say it's parallel to the line with the following equation. We have -4x plus 3y equals 12. Now, they say it's parallel to that equation, which means it has the same slope, which means I need to find the slope of this line because I don't have the slope at this point. I have the y-intercept of my line. I don't have the slope. So I'm going to find the slope of this line, and then that's going to match the slope of the line I'm looking for. So I'm going to add 4x to both sides first. So that's going to be 3y is equal to 4x plus 12. And then I'm going to divide everything by 3. I don't really care about this number, just part of the problem. I really care about the slope. So the slope's going to be 4/3 x. Technically, this is plus 4, which doesn't match this y-intercept, which it shouldn't. They're parallel. So my slope is going to be 4/3. So again, I have my y-intercept and my slope. So I have my equation. They told you the equation of the line L is y equals ax plus b. And that's really just saying this is a. That's all they're saying. So they want you to take my slope, my y-intercept, and add them up. So I'm going to go 4/3. This is my a, or my m, plus -1. So I'm going to call this -1/1, and I'm going to find the common denominator and add them up. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to multiply this by 3. So I have 4/3 minus 3/3, and that's going to equal 1/3. And that's going to be your answer for number 16. Number 17 does the exact same problem. So there's a lot of things I don't want to write down again because I've already found it. The only thing that really changes 16 to 17, again, we still have a y-intercept of 0, -1. So b is -1. But the slope, what we have to realize is we would solve this whole thing. All they did on this problem is say the line L passed through 0, -1, and that line L is perpendicular to the line with this equation. Well, we know the slope of this line is 4/3. So I want to find a slope that's perpendicular to 4/3. And the slope that is perpendicular to 4/3 is going to have an opposite reciprocal slope. Opposite means it's going to be negative. Reciprocal means we flip the fraction. So it's going to be -3/4. So that's going to be my slope. So I have my y-intercept of -1. I have my slope of -3/4. So again, same thing here. What's the value of a plus b? So we're going to add these two numbers together because remember, this is a, the way they present it in the problem. So I'm going to go -3/4 minus 1/1, get a common denominator of 4. So that's going to equal -3/4 minus 4/4, and that's going to give you an answer of -7/4. So that's going to be your answer for number 17. Number 18 says John is buying vanilla and peach yogurt cups, and they have $45 in total to spend. Vanilla yogurt cups cost $5 each, and peach yogurt cups cost $2 each. Now, first off, when I talk about the word each, remember each means a rate, and a rate, it means you're multiplying by some number, some variable. So when I see those numbers right off the bat, I'm thinking of maybe like a standard form type of equation. So as you're going through all these, X is the vanilla yogurt cups. Now the vanilla yogurt cups are $5 each. So I know my rate would be 5 times X. because it's $5 for each yogurt cup. The variable X represents the yogurt cups that we're looking at here, the vanilla ones. Now, the next one they say are the peach yogurt cups. They are $2 each. The variable Y stands for the peach yogurt cups. So 2 times Y is going to be my second rate. These two rates represent the cost, how much money you're spending, and you have $45 to spend. So when you add these up, and we're setting this equal to 45, we know that this is the most we can spend. So we can spend $45 or anything less than $45. So it's going to be less than or equal to 45. Again, $5 each, $2 each. That means multiply. We have two rates, so it's a standard form equation. Less than or equal to is how much we can spend. So which inequality shows how many he can buy? Find the one that says 5x plus 2y is less than or equal to 45, and that is going to be answer choice B. That's going to be your answer for number 18. Number 19, again, we're trying to find equations here. So now we have John is buying vanilla and peach yogurt cups with his friend Lucas. So now we have someone else involved. So John bought 2 vanilla yogurt cups for X dollars each. So that word each just showed up again, so I'm going to go ahead and write John. And he paid 2X, $2 each. So it's $2. He bought 2 yogurt cups. The cost is X dollars, so that's kind of representing that situation. Lucas, I'm going to write him up here. So in this one, it says Lucas bought 1 peach yogurt cup, which was $1 more than the price of 1 vanilla yogurt cup. So to figure out, John paid 2X dollars. We don't know how much that is, but we know it's 2X dollars. Well, I know that Lucas, he paid $1 more than that. So he paid $1 more than the cost of a vanilla yogurt cup. So the vanilla yogurt cup was X dollars. So his is going to be X dollars plus 1. So that's going to be the cost here. So he bought 2 for X dollars. He bought 1 item, but it was $1 more than one of these items. So these represent the 2 costs that they spent. Now that we have that, John and Lucas, they split the cost of the yogurt evenly. So if you're going to split something evenly, the way you're going to split it, so if I want to split this, what we're going to do is we're going to go 2x plus x plus 1. We're going to take those 2 values, add them up, and we're going to divide by 2. That's how you split the cost. So when you split it, it's going to end up being 3x plus 1 over 2. So we split the cost, and we also had to pay a 7% sales tax, which means we need, and this is going back to percentages, that percentage lesson, we want to take that split cost and go up, in this case 7%. We want to add 7% sales tax, so we're going to multiply this total by 1.07. You go up a percent, you add that percentage to 1, that's what I'm doing, and I automatically am going to multiply by that number. So when you look at your answer choices, they're all written out as decimals, so here's what you want to look at it as. This is going to be 3 over 2, so I'm going to go 1.07 times 3 over 2, which is 1.5x. I'm writing these as decimals because my answers are decimals, so it's going to help me see this a little bit better. Plus 1/2, which is plus 0.5. So that's the equation. I know when I multiply, I don't actually have to multiply this. I know that this number, 1.5, is going to get a little bit bigger because I'm adding 7% to it. So when you look at your answer choices, the answer choice that adds a little bit to the x value is going to be answer choice D, because it's going to give me 1.605. And again, you don't have to actually calculate that. You can just look at your answer choices. That's the only one that goes up just a little bit. And notice the 0.5 goes up to 0.3535. So both of those just went up just a little bit, which is what it should be doing if you're going up 7%. So that's going to be answer choice D, which is your answer for number 19. And then number 20, it says the monthly membership fee at Shape Up Gym is $10.50. The cost of attending a yoga class at the gym is $1.25 each. Remember, each represents a rate. For 1 month, Claire's bill is $18. How many yoga classes did he attend? So this is going to be a classic slope-intercept form problem. We have y equals mx plus b. We're going to be using that equation for this one. So we have a monthly cost of $10.50. So when you look at this, your initial value is going to be $10.50. So that's kind of where we start. Anytime you have an initial value, that's your B, your Y-intercept. The cost of attending a yoga class is $125 each. That's your rate. Remember, the word each means a rate. So this is going to equal 1.25x. And then we said, or they said, for 1 month, Claire's bill was $18. That's the amount you ended up paying. That's your initial fee plus the cost per class ends up being $18. So this is going to be your equation. And they just want you to figure out how many yoga classes she attended. So we're going to be solving for x. So there's your equation. You have to know how to set it up. Now you solve for x. We subtract 1050 from both sides. So here we have 8 minus 10, 750 with the 0.5 missing, equals 1.25x. And then we're just going to take the 750 divided by 1.25. Sorry, I've subtracted it. And you divide by 0.125, and you're going to get 6. So x is equal to 6. That's how many classes she attended. And that's going to be answer choice C for number 20. All right, moving on to number 21. Says, which of the following equations represents the line that passes through the following 2 points? So we have the point 2, 1 and 5, negative 3. So when you see two points, your first step should be to find the slope. That's what we went over when we talked about slope. So that's where I'm going to start here. I'm going to find the slope between these 2 points. So I'm going to go y2 minus y1, which is negative 3 minus 1. That's me subtracting my y values, over x2 minus x1, so 5 minus 2. So that's your first step. Just figure out what that is. So your slope, remember this is slope, so m equals, well, m is going to be negative 4 on top, 3 on bottom. So we're looking at our answer choices on this. We want to see which ones match that slope. So I want to have a negative 4/3. So when you look at all these, we have A and C are going to be ruled out. And we're just going to see which one has the proper point. Answer choice B is negative, so y equals negative 4/3. And that's now telling me that it's x plus 2 plus 1. So when you look at these points, that's looking at this one. But the problem is this point that they're using is backwards. This point that they're using in this formula is the point negative 2, positive 1. And we have the point positive 2, positive 1. Remember, this sign is always backwards. So B is not going to work. You'll notice answer choice D uses x minus 2 plus 1. So that's the one we're going to want. So your answer for number 21 is going to be D. Number 22, what is the equation of the line that passes through 7, 0 and 0, negative 4? Again, what I always say, if you see 2 points, find the slope. Well, you can use the slope if you're going to use the method. There's 2 ways to solve this. A lot of students like to take all these standard form equations and solve them for y. If you have that, great, do it. I, on the other hand, will do a strategy called working backwards. If you haven't done that lesson, you want to review it. I'm going to use that strategy on this as a little bit of a shortcut to this problem. So I'm going to take these points, 7, 0, and 0, negative 4, and I'm going to check my answer choices and see which ones work with those points. So I'm going to start by checking the point 7, 0. I'm going to plug them in to each one of these equations for A, B, C, and D. If it doesn't work, it's wrong. So answer choice A is 7x minus 4y equals 3. So it'd be 7 times x, which is 7, minus 4y would be minus 0, equals 3. And well, 49 does not equal 3, so I don't need to worry about A ever again, at least for this problem. So then I go on to the next one, which is 7x minus 4y is equal to 28. So I have 7 times x, so 7 times 7, minus 4y, which is 0. And again, that doesn't equal 28, so I know it's not B. So again, plugging in 7, 0. The next one is 4x minus 7y. So I'm going to go 4 times x, which is 7, minus 7y, which is 0 again. And does that equal 28? Yes, it does. Now, it doesn't necessarily make C right, but if D doesn't work, then I don't have to worry about picking another point. I know it's my answer. But you'll notice D is the exact same thing, it just equals -3. So we'd have 4 times 7 minus 0 equals -3, which isn't true. So I only have to really pick one point, test them, see what happens, and C ends up being your answer. So that's going to be number 22. Number 23, it's just about finding, understanding an equation. So on 23, they're giving you an equation which is D is equal to 6 minus 0.2t. Now remember, when you see an equation, this is your initial value because it's your y-intercept. This value right here, that's going to be a rate. And they'll usually use words like per or each to represent that rate. So that's just the equation without me reading the problem. So now you can try to make sense out of it since you already know what you're looking for. So Jill has this phone plan, uses data each month. So the amount of data she has left can be estimated using this equation. So this tells you how much data you have left. So this probably means you initially had 6 gigabytes of data. You're using 0.2 per whatever, probably per day is what they're giving me. D is the amount of data she has remaining. T is the number of days of each month. So there we go. So we had 6 gigabytes minus 0.2 gigabytes per day. That's really what they're telling me in this equation. We start with 6 gigabytes every month. We use 0.2 per day. So with that, what's the meaning of the 6 and the 0.2? We look at our answer choices. Jill will use up her data in 6 days. Well, no, that's not what it's saying at all. So it's not going to be A. B says Jill initially had 6 gigabytes. Yes, initially. And uses 0.2 gigabytes per, the word per means a rate, per day. So B is looking like exactly what we want. Now if you check C, she loses 0.2 gigabytes from her 6 gigabyte plan per month. That doesn't make any sense. They're using some of the right words, but it doesn't fit. And D says Jill loses data at 6 gigabytes per day. They have the rate and the initial value backwards on that. So it's not D. Your answer for 23 is B. So understand initial and rate using the word per or each. Okay, so that's going to be number 23.